got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it. You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey guys, it's Brad there, Permy here, and I got an exciting video to talk today about one of my favorite permaculture techniques. It's called hugel beds. I was inspired to start this YouTube channel and start making these videos over the epidemic we've been having going on right now with the coronavirus. I would like to inspire and give some wisdom on people about going through a hard time and struggle and how it makes you stronger. We have all the time in the world during this quarantine to work on stuff and to become better people and to come out of this situation stronger. Now we're going to talk a little bit of basics about soil. I'm going to tell you the elements that go into soil and all the nutrients your plants really need, but I'm also going to go into this more in depth on my compost video, which will be coming out here soon. The three main ingredients in soil that you'll see on bags at the store or anything are NPK. What that stands for is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. There are other nutrients inside the soil that we call them micronutrients. Those are calcium, magnesium, boron, copper, iron, sulfur, manganese, and molybdenum. Hugel beds are not overnight miracles, and a lot of times the abundancy of harvest will not come until later years. The first 3 years are a little bit rough because the mycelium is breaking down the lasagna layers and making it into soil. I suggest you go down to your store and get a mushroom compost bag and some type of manure, whether it's black cow or black hen. Also peat moss or coconut coir. I'm more of a coconut fan because here in Florida we can actually grow coconuts. We can't grow peat moss, so that lowers the carbon footprint and is more sustainable. Mix all those soils together. You can put a 4 to 6 inch layer of that soil on top of your hugel bed and start gardening today. I don't like to use perlite or gypsum because they come from other states and require a lot of carbon and petrol footprint in order for them to be mined out of the ground and brought all the way here to Florida. Hugelkultur is a German word that means decaying wood. Traditionally, they're about 4 feet wide and however long you want them to be. They're stacked on top of the ground, and the first layer, large logs. The large logs are the bottom layer of the hugel bed, and they act as both a time bank for the water and a sponge, and two, a layer that keeps your soil that you're creating on top from seeping into the sand and down into the aquifer. The second layer of your hugel bed is going to be what we call the lasagna stacking. This is where you take products like leaves, mulch, manure, compost, and whatnot, and you layer them together on top of each other and allow the mycelium to do its job and to break it down into soil. Mycelium eats the materials like the leaves, the manure, and the sticks. It turns it into soil, which then the plants go and eat. As I said, traditionally, the hugel bed is about 4 feet wide and however long you want it to be. Here in the urban setting, I set them up to where they're a little bit smaller and manageable and make a little bit more sense on my small area I work with. My hugel beds I decided to bury because I didn't want a large amount of material spilling all over the place into my workways. One way of composting at my house is I take old coffee grounds and eggshells and I put them in my hugel beds. This is a good way of renewing and recycling the compost materials without actually having a compost bin. But you don't want to put fruits and vegetables that you would usually put in a compost bin because those seeds can start popping up in your hugel bed where you don't want them to be. Manures that are safe for your hugel bed would be chicken, duck, goat, cow, rabbit, pig. The only manures you don't want to use in your compost bin would be horse manure. When they've been treated with heartworm medication, the heartworm medication actually prohibits some of the mycelium from breaking down the material and turning it into soil in your bed. Now all of these materials I told you are going to give you a good NPK, but they're not actually going to bring some of those micronutrients that I was talking about. The way we introduce those into the compost system is either with 1, a dynamic accumulator, or 2, compost teas. Popular dynamic accumulators here that grow here in Florida are Moringa oleifera, Mexican sunflower, and if you're lucky enough to grow it, comfrey. This hugel bed I have right here that we're about to build is already a build that I built 3 years ago. So I'm actually going to show you how to turn your bed and how to make a new bed all in one video. One of the founding fathers of permaculture is Masanobu Fukuoka, and he says, "The art of farming is not growing crops, but the cultivation of humans." One of the most important materials you can have on any homestead or permaculture site is mulch. You can measure a permaculturist by how many yards of mulch he's moved. I go and get my mulch from a company called Chip Drop. It's a pretty good company. You sign up, And any arborist in town that's cutting a tree can come and drop off mulch to your house instead of taking it to the dump. Using mulch on your project is a great way to sequester carbon and put it back into the soil instead of taking it to the dump and allowing it to get burned into the atmosphere. When you first get your chip drop, you're going to want to let it sit between 3 to 6 months depending on how much water or the rainy season. If you're in the summertime, it should only take 3 months. In the wintertime, it might take 6. Another good trick to use is to get some type of edible or medicinal mushroom mycelium culture and to inoculate your beds. So now these beds, they're now growing beneficial, edible, or medicinal mushrooms.
You're a tiger, walking through worlds of burning fire, but they put you in a zoo in your dreams. You were flying through the trees, but when you woke up, you were behind a lock and key.
This is my first hugel bed I made 3 years ago. And this is when I went the traditional route and I put all the logs here on the face, on the surface. Now you can see I have my hugel beds buried, and you'll see in this video we're actually going to bury this one. But you can see all the layers I've taken. This is all filled with the mulch, the straw, the manures that I was talking about, and it's turned into soil. The reason why I'm having to redo this bed is because I have a lot of huge oak trees here, and their roots will actually come up and start stealing the soil. So all this is actually oak roots, and they'll start suffocating my plants that are growing. That's why these never got too big. And you know, for the first 3 years, you're going to have to fight against the oak trees and take back your soil. When you start noticing your plants are really getting stunted on growth and aren't growing to the right size at the time appropriate for their seeding, you should start looking into the soil. I put my hand in the soil, and what do I find? A bunch of roots from an oak tree. You know, I can't dig down without getting a big web of roots, which is a sign that an oak tree has invaded here and is taking up all the soil and is trying to keep it for itself. So what I like to do is dig down in it, get a big bunch of the roots together and shake it out and try to steal back as much of my soil as possible. As I was mentioning before, our bottom layer is really hard oak. This was a solid piece of wood. Now you can't really tell, but I can squeeze it and feel a little bit of compression, which means it's doing its job. It's soaking up moisture and breaking down slowly. When I first started making these hugel beds, a popular thing in Florida was to use seagrass. A lot of people talk about seaweed being really good in the micronutrients, but here in Florida we don't actually have seaweed, we have seagrass. So I started to go to the edge line of the shore and collect seagrass from the shoreline, but I soon realized that a lot of it was full of plastic and I didn't really trust the water that it was near, so I kind of stopped doing that recently, but some people still like to use seagrass as a fertilizer.
So you looked up into the faces of the people staring at you. You said, what the fuck are you looking at? I'm a tiger.
Once we've retained as much soil as possible, we've taken back as much soil from the oak roots and the bamboo roots that we possibly can. Now it's time to start digging. Once we finish our hugel bed and lay out all the layers, this soil that we just took back will go on top and it will feed the new plants that we're putting in this year.
This is no place for my fire, you're a liar. If you think you care about me, so you went to dreamland.
So now that we have dug our hole and where we're going to place our logs in, I usually like to dig this hole about 1.5 to 2 feet deep. We're going to start placing in the heavy logs, our bottom layer of the hugel bed.
More and more often, 'cause in dreamland you were king of the jungle, but in that fucking cage you were angered and afraid that you'd never ever see the day that you could run away. You said, who the fuck are you to put me in a zoo? I'm a tiger with a fire.
Now that we have our bottom layer of the hugel bed finished, we're going to start building a little bit smaller branches like this, and also I like to go and take palm fronds. They're everywhere here in Florida and they break down really quickly and are really good carving.
And I'll bite you in your face. Who the fuck are you to put me in a zoo? I'm a tiger with a fire, and I'll bite you in your face. You're a dolphin, queen of the ocean, mind of mystery, a soul that is free. Then one day, while you were at play, they took you and put you far, far away where they train you for people's entertainment. You said,
Now we have our small branches that are palm fronds in there. We're going to start putting leaves and mulch and manure. We're going to start the official lasagna layers.
You were behind a lock and key. You said, why am I here listening to your cheers? I'm a dolphin from the ocean, and that's where I'm meant to be. Why am I here listening to your cheers? I'm a dolphin from the ocean. You should be entertaining me. Thank you.
So fine, I wish that I could make you mine. Won't you sit down?
Now that we finished with our raw materials for the lasagna layer, we're going to start adding our soil that we saved from before.
Oh, it's hard, we're going into this life. One day we must die. But that river will flow on, even after we're all long gone. Yes, that river will flow on. Won't you take me with you before I'm gone?
Now that we finished all of our lasagna layers, we're going to get started on the border. They're pretty cool because I add mushroom plugs into them, so we're actually growing mushrooms on the border of our beds.
There you sit, you're so alone and quiet. Well, I can't help but stare how I love you, and it just ain't fair. But that river will flow on, even after we're all long gone. Well, that river will flow on. Won't you take me with you before I'm gone?
Now that your hugel bed's all finished, the only thing left to do is water. Usually I like to wait about 3 to 6 months before I actually put any plants in. That way the mycelium has time to start breaking down some of the material. Well, that's the end of the hugel bed video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any comments or questions, please put them down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Next week's video, I'm going to be going over terms and definitions like GMO, organic, heirloom, artificial fertilizers, and pesticides. If you have any words that you would like me to cover that I haven't said already, please put that in the comments below or direct message me and I'll make sure to cover them in the next video.